together in her work by the freedom and restriction of algorithms. Rosi artworks has been exhibited at Ars Electronica Museum, Festival in Austria, TEDx Teheran, and Media Lab in Spain. She was involved in the organization of digital art events like Ars Electronica Festival, Node Forum of Digital Arts in Frankfurt, and she holds a master's degree from the Interface Culture Department at Art University at Linz. So Rosi, how are you today? Maybe your microphone is...
Now, does it work?
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, thank you for the introduction. Wow. It was a long text that I sent you over before the Corona quarantine started.
Okay, so my first question for you is that the world is changing now. We have been forced to change our everyday life, closing ourselves at home, working remotely. I suppose some of those things are not new for you, because as a digital artist, you spend a lot of time at your computer with your programs and codes. Have you experienced significant changes in your everyday life and work after the outbreak of COVID-19?
Changes definitely, yes, because as an artist too, and also an educator, I'm often holding workshops, which unfortunately were all cancelled for the next 2 months. So the first one was, oh shit, what should I do now? And now I'm home since 2 months, and I realized that it's actually something good that's happening to me, because I have a lot more time to reflect and make my independent definitions of what I'm doing. And I also realized that those events that are really necessary to happen, they still happen. And I saw also from the text that you just wrote, all the things I was doing, it was very accelerated before. And yeah, now it's more the time not to go out and talk so much, but more going inside and finding new ideas. And so that's the thing that I really appreciate about this, is that, yeah, only the things that we need to happen. What I'm missing though is that we are all a bit separated from each other. So all the concerts, the festivals, the places where you meet and where you can get inspired or form a collective new idea, this is definitely missing for me right now. Yeah. And the second part of your question was about being in front of the computer as a digital artist. Well, I know my computer very well. We have a very good everyday relationship. Still, at some point, the computer turned into a tool for me, and I am much more engaging with the topics I'm interested in. So, for example, if I'm doing a research on a process in nature or on a process in the city that I live, I go back to my computer to use it as a tool to create the output then, like a painter would use a brush, for example. And this, especially now it's in spring, it's quite hard for me to sit in front of the computer all day. So I structure the day into during the day being active to get the inputs, and then in the evening I can sit and transform them. Bit of the, I will show you later what you can imagine by that. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, in times like this, we have more time with ourselves, as you already mentioned. And in my opinion, we need art and culture more than ever before. For example, I visited various exhibitions and cultural events online. Some of the greatest museums are free now for visiting online, such as the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, the Louvre, El Museo del Prado, also the British Museum in London. Do you think that those specific circumstances could make people more interested in art, more passionate about it?
Yeah, well, I want to distinguish the question into two parts. The second part is the one that I'm very interested in. Do people get more interested in arts? I think yes, in that the beginning, that connecting to yourself and thinking what is art for you, and having more time to read or go out and also think what do you really want to do and what are you working for every day. And the other aspect about the online, how the online art or the art is provided. I think it's more a very good place to see which forms evolve by the restrictions that we are having right now, like which fields are more explored now, or how do alternative ways of communication in art, how might they look like? So, but still, I think we shouldn't forget. I mean, it's opening these opportunities, but still, it's a crisis. So it's many artists are restricted from what they are normally doing or from the audience that they are having. So in terms of going to a museum online, that's for me a big question in digital art in the digital space, or I haptically interact, or I am with another person in front of a piece of art and I talk to this other person and we engage in it, and by that actually the art happens. That's something that you could do in the digital space if you use the right tools and if you have the right audience, no? But otherwise, it's more like looking at the catalog, maybe, that you could also like, go through page by page.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you, because art is experience, and you can't change it with like a dialogue. Looking at the pictures is not the same, but still it's something that we can get inspired. And I want to ask you, you're a professional in the digital art, and you're a woman. Do you face any specific problems with this? I mean, is this field still male dominated, or it's gender neutral? Do you think we need to encourage also more women to be part of the digital art industry?
The encouraging part is very important. That's also something why I became an educator, to just show that it's possible and it's not that hard to jump over the stereotypes that going into technology and learning programming and understanding the world via math, for example, is something that we are all connected to like nature. And somehow we establish these weird power structures that some are seem more able to do that than others. So I see that definitely as a problem. I see that as a problem in society and power structures, as I already said. But when it comes to art itself and being an artist, I think that's like in every field that you can gain excellence in what you're doing, or anything that you're passionate about, that on this level, I wouldn't see any difference. So, and that's also why when I was thinking about who is inspiring for me, I have to say, to my mind, there are more men coming than women, because there are just more of them out there. And why is that? Because I think that they have more, it's more easy for them to start on a level already where you say, I can do what I want and I live up to this full potential. And then I reach this excellence that I can have in the field. That's also, oh, I mean, it's a habit of mine that when I go through art history or when I watch a documentary, I look how many women are mentioned there, how many female artists we have in art history, and they're always missing from me. That's something that makes me like subconsciously angry already. But also I see that, okay, but it's possible if you have the right basis, this mindset of I can do it if I want to, then I will reach this level of doing exactly what makes me really passionate and that I can get really good about in art, for example, in programming as well.
You already started my second question, which is about the co-pilots and coaches, the professional path. So could you share with us who are they, and how they encourage you?
Yeah, well, hello, am I still in? I don't see.
Yes, yes.
Because
Did you
for
hear me?
okay, great. Okay. This online conference. Yeah, who is inspiring for me? I mean, first of all, I tell you shortly a bit how I got started. When I was 18, I decided to start digital arts, study at university, and also study programming at the local computer science university. And there, it was not a very community spirit. Learning computer science or learning programming was something that you would be trained for the market to develop softwares afterwards. and to then have a secure job. It was super weird that I was there to join it with art. And it took a few years until I found my community where I really knew that's why I'm doing it, which was a bunch of creative nerds in Germany. They are forming the Node Festival. And they are not only programmers and artists, they are also developing their own tools. The main tool is the one that you mentioned already. It's called VVVV. It's a software that many artists and programmers use. So it's like the festival is called Node. It's like where it comes together.
Yeah.
So being part of this community is super inspiring for me because it's this open culture of sharing. When somebody did a project, they would open source the code for the others so that they could also join in and then develop it further. And I think this is in programming or in like this sharing and letting each other and growing by each other is super, super important. So
Nice.
yeah, so that's this community aspect that I cannot stop mentioning it enough because I see that in also when it comes to leadership or coming up on the market, I think it's important to nurture each other, to have a live field of different components of different groups. Also, if you would call it competition on the market, it's a bit like a woodworks. The trees in a wood, they know kind of where the water comes from, and they know, and all the trees, as soon as one tree doesn't have enough place for the roots, it can send kind of signals to the others that it needs more water, and then there is a kind of regulation going on naturally that would give this tree more water, so that the whole forest can grow by that. And this is also how I see it. For example, when it was who is inspiring me, and then I thought, okay, all the other artists are so cool. I want to mention them because we're always helping each other and inspiring each other too.
That's really nice. And about what you said about the nature, it's also really inspiring for me too. And during this pandemic, actually, we are really realized how much we miss the nature, going outside and get inspired from the sea, from the forest, to observe the nature. And as you mentioned now, and also in your previous interview with us, you're inspired. Your art is inspired by the nature, and you like to observe the fungus, the bacteria, and stuff like this. Can you tell us more about this? And would you share with us some of your pieces so we can understand better what it is about?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so now we are in the introduction of that I prepared some pictures for that I want to show. Okay, so let me get started. I'm sharing my screen with you. Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yes,
Okay.
it's your screen.
Okay, cool. So I want to start with a very simple example. This is just a little in processing, which is another software that I use. You see, it's like a rotating circle that is very easily made with an algorithm. You give it these things like rotation, scaling, how it's rotated towards the camera. You can make it move, and this phase I would call the phase of ideas. For me, the virtual space, the digital space is very related to ideas. So how do I structure information in my mind? How do processes look like? Which processes am I interested in? Because for me, the world is full of processes that are coming together. Like they're coming to me, I can transform them, and then what do I make out of this? And here, this is the artistic decision, kind of like which processes you want to emphasize, how you pair them up. It's a bit like curating as well. And then if from there you could go into different directions, of course. And in this case, I decided to put them out into the real world again, because especially in the time when I was working a lot with computers, I missed the haptic feedback especially of wood, of stones, of being outside. For example, I wish I would be born in a time where a computer could be something that I would be able to use without cables outside to directly be in this stream. But so here, to see it was put back into wood. Like that's a little example, just for digital arts as well. I would say that what is it? It's something that an idea that is born in the digital space. It couldn't have been. It couldn't have happened without us having computers or information technology. And then it's manifesting itself. Sometimes that means you don't even need a computer in the process of making it, but you need the knowledge that the computer brings, the way of thinking that it brings us. So
But this, you said this is a wood, but is it wood?
yes, this was on the computer. The pattern was developed on the computer, and then it was etched. I etched it into wood, just
Nice.
into just as a small example of what I'm talking about. And here is another project that we did at university a few years ago. It was about plants and the structure of plants and also the plants' behavior, where we were looking at how we could, what could we do with the plants' behavior. Here in this case, these little plants, they are following the light. You could also influence them with which kind of soil they have, how much water they get. This picture for me by now got an analogy to artificial intelligence. So maybe we can talk about that later as well. Because here we have this beautiful plant that is growing by itself and we want to steer it into certain directions and it does what we want and we can reflect on it. We see it works, no, on these parameters that we can change. And maybe later we can talk about AI as well. So, and here there are just some more examples of these geometrical patterns, because for me, nature and math are basically the same thing. So these are just computer-generated patterns where there is one formula fed in. I wish that math would be taught in high schools like this. Yeah, that would be one formula and then you could experiment and see it grow on your computer. For example, this is a particle system that was for a classical concert last year, where the particles, there was a physics system behind them that would throw them up and down, like visuals for a concert. And here we have, this is again the beauty of math that I really fell for. It's simplicity and still, you can get lost in it, and it's following simple rules, which is amazing. The more simple, the better. This is not mine, by the way. It's just reprogrammed. It's one example that I found online. The next one, though, was a study on fluids, how fluids behave. So there is also a formula, of course, how a fluid would behave in the water or in how the wind particles in the wind would look like. And this one was a trial to use this equation of fluids to make a visual effect. Here again, I want to reference my BCWT community because somebody else made this flow, analyzed it mathematically, and then I could use it and make this visual out of it. So it's like a project that is growing and has different branches. And this is one more, which is one of the examples that I use when I teach generative design. It's also from the BCWT community. And this is a noise or randomness, we would say is, what is random? Everything is completely random, and you wouldn't think that you could calculate randomness. In this case, they are moving a bit and then they are always coming back into the same point. So at every point when you would stop it, it would look exactly random, but in the movement, you see how the process that is in there, that is hidden in there, the movement makes it visible. So,
what I see of your works, and we talked before in a private conversation that you are really intrigued by behaviors. Obviously, the behaviors of the plants, behaviors of the fluids, and also you now are making some researches by your own for the behavior of human, and how the machine and the human brain can interact with each other. Maybe you can share also about this with us later.
Yeah, I think that
It came up on me because it's,
sure. Yeah, because we were also talking about language, no? I wanted to go back to that as well. Yeah, so there's one more part, the digital fabrication, which is the other tool I really like to use, is Rhino. It's 3D software. And again, simple algorithms, and then how can you put them into 3D? How can you manifest them again in the world? This one is a super nice glitch of my 3D printer. It was just not right calibrated, and then suddenly you get these really weird glitches in the real world that you normally know maybe from a corrupt file on the computer. So here, this pattern, it's fading out. So again, there is this really nice overlap of digital and real space, and digital and real production. That often happens also by accident. And yeah, now this picture I was using for artificial worlds. It's actually, I took a picture of a screen of a video game that should be as realistic as possible. So it's like a rendering of a scene. The game is called The Vanishing of Ethan Carter. I think it was in 2014 that it came out, and there is this perfect mimic. They got really famous for mimicking this world perfectly. You could even zoom in and see the little stones on the ground. And I thought I would even like to take a walk there instead of the real outside, because it's so nicely made. And then I also thought that where does this reproduction of reality stop? Because we had it once already, or several times, when media was developed, when, for example, like around 150 years ago, when painters tried to be as naturalistic as possible and so close to the actual form, that suddenly it was something new, that somebody made something abstract, no? Then
yes.
an image, for example. Yeah, and so now, okay, we know we can recreate this artificially very well. It looks super real, and we can immerse ourselves in it. We can take the virtual reality classes, for example. And then I think, okay, now this field has so much attention, and it's so full of possibilities. So how can we keep this attention and not just keep it, but use it for something? So how can we, what can we do in it that is different from the reality? And that's also where I see the potential in artificial intelligence and art. Because, okay, we have on the one hand, yeah, we have image recognition, we have these really interesting generative adversarial networks that are really, that can, for example, even imagine human faces. And my first question was then, what is it that only humans can do that machines cannot? And this is, I think, a very popular question in the digital art community right now. Like finding out where is the border to something that a machine could never mimic or could never make that a human can do. And this kind of research was something that I did in the past. Also, I'm very lucky that I'm living in the city of the Ars Electronica Festival, because yeah, this festival is happening here since the 70s, and so once a year we have a lot of like the latest digital art that's happening here in the city, and I was part of the team and also giving guided tours, and so I saw so many artists that asked this question: where is the difference with what is the place where we cannot be replaced? And it's like a philosophical question that is now very big. Yeah.
Thank you very much for sharing with us these pieces. This leads me to my next question to you, which is connected with your personal path. Maybe you can share with us something from your path that inspires you, but also was difficult for you. That was something make you think twice. you decided to overcome?
Yes, I can share something very recent that as I already had a lot of time to think, and I thought, yeah, so much time during this we are being home, so many things too that I can finally research. And what frustrated me personally a lot was that I'm not a scientist. And of course, I mean, I always try to learn about art or about mathematics, for example, or learn about biology or learn about how AI is used in bioinformatics. And I think that I can only make art if I understood this topic very well before. And but this is when I lately realized I have to remind myself that I'm not doing the job of a mathematician, I'm doing the job of the artist. So at some point there should be this, okay, this is what I have, this is the release. So at the moment. In art school, I also learned that every project should be finished at any moment. So if you make a little drawing, and maybe in 1 month it could be the best painting with all those details ever, but it should be able to be finished at any moment. And if I now spend 2 months learning, I don't know, analysis in mathematics or some new programming language because everybody is using it, then I would never get back to this stage of release. So I should be close to the stage of being able to release something. I think it's also a training in being humble towards, yeah, having these big topics like nature or the mind and science. Yeah. So that sometimes it's overcoming me, and then nothing is. I cannot do anything anymore.
Yes, we talked today also about the languages,
Yeah.
which is connected with the languages. I recently I share with you my studies on Italian, and recently I was studying the professions in Italian, how they are, and something really stressed me out because there was a little phrase about the professions like lawyers and doctors, and it's written with little letters. They are in male because they're mostly male professions.
Yes.
And even used for a female, you should use it in a male form. Well, this a bit made me think about twice of it, and you also make some research on it. So can you share us more about this
Oh, yeah. It's
research?
interesting because for me this is in German is like this as well. So is it in Bulgarian not like this or?
In Bulgarian, we also have the forms for female. We don't use it so much, but we have them because it's accepted mostly to use male. But
Yeah, that's similar, I would say, because here in German there's also the standard word is the male word, and then you have to you extend it by innen, like a double syllable extension to the word, which would make it female. And for me, I mean, since I was a teenager, it's very important. I learned, or I know it, that language shapes how we think, or language shapes our reality, the way we talk. So it's super important because some people say, oh, come on, you don't always have to say, for example, Lehrer und Lehrerinnen, which means teachers and female teachers. But I say, okay, it's very important to do that because that shapes the mind that they're the female teachers too, or the female programmers, for example, the female artists. And that in general, it's not only in this topic very important, it's also when we say that language shapes our reality, that's extending to how we see the whole world through our language and how it changes. For example, now that I speak English, which is not my mother tongue, I have a kind of different approach to things because I was trained in when I use English, for example, maybe in a professional setting or at school or at university in a presentation. So the way I express myself is different because this is how I got surrounded by the language. So yeah, the more we train ourselves on these details, the better it becomes that we can imagine it even better. And I also read a study that sometimes if people are thinking really much in stereotypes, for example, there is no female woodworker in their mindset, or then it's even like if you then talk about female woodworkers instead of the male ones, then it would even hurt something in the brain, or it's like an angry, like, what are you saying? This is the first reaction because it's so unfamiliar to me. And maybe this is also, yeah, for anything that would lead towards a more inclusive society that we don't have yet, that first these stereotypes with this, like, sometimes subconscious angry reaction need to be broken by repetitively, like, bringing it into the reality of the people by talking about it.
Yeah. And talking about this, do you think that there are gender biases in your field, in the digital art field?
In the digital art field, yes. Again, if I talk about the structure, how the festivals work, how the then I would say yes, because it's not only, it's the whole structure. Also, I think it's similar as in the music. When the team of a music festival is mainly male, then the acts might also be selected more in that way. Like if the team is more more inclusive or more open, or let's also say just focusing, giving more focus on it, then it's definitely possible to have like a 50-50 or even a wide range of different people that are participating, but it's some extra effort. For example, I noticed it from Ars Electronica Festival that until a few years ago, the jury was also more, it was not completely balanced. And also the pieces that were selected were very, like, male artists won the main prize. And now, since 5 years, there is this initiative to say, okay, we do the extra effort, because also, for example, the submissions are not there. If there are 80% of the artworks submitted by male artists, it's also hard to find, like, outstanding works in the 20% that are not by male artists. Yeah, so it's I think it's a structural problem that affects all layers of this digital art production or this digital art field, that we should include into the process of gradually getting better and getting more inclusive in it. But as I said in the beginning, the most important thing for me is being creative and collaborating with each other. And on this level, I don't see differences. And maybe that was also because I was lucky enough to study in a really great university with a very international one, with where we didn't have we overcame it to a big point, not completely, but it was not so present anymore. The difference. Sorry, I don't hear you. Sorry, Irina, I don't hear you. Hello, hello. No, it doesn't work. I'm very sorry. Maybe your microphone. Did you change anything about your microphone? Very sorry. I still don't hear you. Unfortunately, still not. No. No. Anybody else in the chat? We cannot hear you as well. I guess you mean I should. You have an idea. No, I still don't hear you, sorry. Maybe you can change your microphone in the settings. I can address the questions in the chat in the meantime. Is that a good idea that until you fix the audio problem, I read this question that was asked by Sasha. When having excellence in the field, there is no difference, agreed. But how we can encourage more girls and women to believe in their talent and to follow their inspiration without prejudice? Okay. How can any one of us live up to their full potential without prejudice? I think that's the question. And for me, the sad thing right now, but that's more on a broader scale, is that we still talk about men and women and the differences because, of course, there is a difference. So for me, it was always more narrowing my path by knowing that I'm a woman and they are the men. And in my personal experience, I'd like not to think about that too much. Yeah. So, but still, we know we know the numbers. We know that there are a lot of potential, really good female coders that just, I don't know, didn't get the chance yet to try themselves out or are not encouraged or don't feel. Ha! I hear you again.
Hi, do you hear me now?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, I have a colleague here, so I took her computer.
Okay, great.
But continue with your answer.
Okay, I continue with the answer. So, the more natural it looks like that we have women coding or women teaching code, the more natural it is to get into this field. So, until that point, I think we also, this is a political question, we also need this, in German it's called quotes. I don't know if it's correct in English, that you say, okay, a certain amount of programmers or a certain amount of people in the company, on level of the CEOs should be women. Not until we don't need this rule anymore. That's the thing. And if I think about initiatives that I took part in to bring more women into coding, there are different ones. I'm super happy that here in Linz we have this. There is one called Hello World, which is for kids, and we teach them how to program, but without computers. More about how to get into the thinking of a computer. How does a computer think, and how is it different from a human? And there, I'm very happy that we nearly have as many girls as boys. And also, I really like it when digital art festivals have a kids or a youth program, so that they are introduced to the field very early. And then I believe we shouldn't even start with making the difference of, wow, you're a little girl and you're interested in programming, so good of you. It would be better to not even mention that. That would be my ideal one day. Yeah. I hope that's yeah.
I was thinking something about what you said and about the way the computer thinks. Okay, what is the way the computer thinks? Is it male or female? Can we define it in this way? Because as we know, the brain of female and male are different. The way we process is different. The way we react is different, and it's in our biology. Can we say that in the computer there is something divided like this, or?
Okay, so for me, the computer is a logic and a language machine. The logic is not affected by gender, it's just there. It's like math and it's like nature. So, and this is like how electronics work, on and off. So, but if it's going to the way we interact with computers, let's start with the first programming languages that were developed in the 1920s. and we still use them actually. It's like the same language to interact with the computer is, for example, there is this master-server relationship, which still comes from a time of colonialism. And then there is this imperative way of talking to the machine and the efficiency that is communicated in it. And there are many standards of, like efficiency, quantity, this way of thinking that is engraved in the machines. So, and these are the machines that we are talking through. And still, of course, we also have to think about who is developing the software that we are using. When we say that there are like 80 to 90% male software developers, then this is also their culture, the culture of the company, the culture that they're growing in. If it's not so inclusive, this is reflected in the products that we are using. Yeah. So, and also thanks for this question, because actually it was the topic of my master thesis, which we didn't talk about that before, so that was a good little. I was writing about code and poetry, so I was using this language of the computer that we are used to, and making it poetic or changing the rules of it. How can it still be logic, but the language that we use is different? So, yeah.
Those fascinating things, really fascinating. We can answer one more question we have from our audience. It's from Denita. Could you share one of your dreams from your childhood? Please share also one of your current grow-up dreams. Thank you.
Cool question. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a teacher. And I always wanted to be the teacher in that grade that I was studying right now. Maybe because I thought I have better ideas than the teachers. No, but I really like to figure out things, and I wanted to figure them out by myself. The best thing that could have happened is when suddenly two things would make sense because they belong together, even though you would think, wow, they don't have anything to do with each other. And I wanted to learn that way in school. Maybe that's why I really thought teaching is cool. And still the same for now. The grown-up dreams. The grown-up dreams is that well, it's hard to phrase it, because I have to say I'm very lucky that I'm in this position, that I'm doing that I'm doing art, and I do my research, and I question myself. I have a lot of friends in the field to exchange with them. And what I want to see more in the future is more community-driven spaces in arts, in science, in like this open and exchange atmosphere. So if I can work towards that, that would make me happy.
Amazing. Do you know what these days someone shared with me? It's about the new media art or the digital art, about creating commercials for some products that are mostly feminine, but the most of the designers are male, and they're afraid that they cannot actually present the product in the way that the woman wants to see it, because they're only assuming what would be the woman's reaction. And they share with me that there are not in Bulgaria, there are not enough digital artists. But still, we have some, and some of them are really, really good with what they do. And do you remember something that you saw, or do you have any knowledge about Bulgarian art, digital art, and some artists maybe?
Yeah, Bulgarian digital art. I mean, the first one that comes to my mind was my former flatmate, Klementina Hristova. She is an artist from Bulgaria, and she's from Sofia. No, from Varna, but she studied in Sofia. And we had many evening after dinner conversations about the art scenes in Austria and in Bulgaria also. And what I heard from her, I mean, this is one very important source for me, is that I see her as someone she is creating this very interesting, dreamy world, but she is never losing the contact to the ground and why she is doing it. So that's also That also what I see in the art scene in Bulgaria. From different initiatives. There are so many initiatives, and at the same time as you, I think you're